Thank you, Jonathan. Usually I open my presentation by saying how happy I am to be here and thanking the organizers for inviting me. So I am happy to be here, but there is nobody to thank because I invited myself. So I'll skip that. And I would like to start with two unrelated remarks to the subject matter which I would like to share with you today, which is postmodern terrorism. Those two unrelated remarks actually has something to do with the first remark of Daniel Pipes. Daniel was referring to the memorandum that was conducted in Turkey and expressed his concern from that, and I would like to share this concern with him. About 5 years ago, I was asked by a journalist, what is my reaction to the political tension in Iran? And I was asked, do I think that it might lead to an internal revolution in Iran itself? And I said back then that we can find 5 years ago that there are two contradicting trends in the region. One is this, I would say, positive, pragmatic change or beginning or a seed of a change in Iran. But at the same time, there are negative seeds and the negative processes which are being conducted in Turkey, which might lead into a radical revolution altogether. And I said that, in my view, the future of the region, the Middle East, the future of the whole world, will be very much influenced by the answer to the question, which revolution will take place first? Unfortunately, I believe that the outcome of the memorandum of yesterday shows us that the track of the radical revolution in Turkey probably going on a faster track than the pragmatic processes in Iran. And another remark dealing with this specific subject matter, a few years ago I was invited to give a talk in Turkey by the Turkish army. It was an international conference with the presence of Erdogan and Karzai themselves. And in my talk, I was saying that we were talking about global jihad and Al-Qaeda, and I was saying that, in my view, the biggest enemy of Al-Qaeda is not United States, is not Israel, is not even the Western society. The biggest enemy of Al-Qaeda is a state like Turkey, a state that actually showed to the whole world, and the Muslim world in particular, that there is not necessarily a contradiction between modern lifestyle, between Western lifestyle, between pragmatism and Islam. This is the biggest enemy of Al-Qaeda. I'm afraid that Turkey is now no more the biggest enemy of Al-Qaeda, and actually Turkey is facing a slippery slope that brings them much closer to fundamental beliefs that some of the Al-Qaeda members has in mind as well. So with this happy note, I would like to go on and talk about the subject matter that I had intentionally in mind to share with you today. Yesterday, I was talking about an unprecedented combination of several challenges and threats that are being posed and are posing a threat to the safety of the international community and the whole world, and have a direct influence on international terrorism altogether. The first trend was the efforts of Iran to manufacture and to have the capability of nuclear military capability. The second trend was the decision of United States to conduct a military withdrawal from Iraq, leaving in the air the question of how Iraq will be conducted, if it will be stabilized, or if it will become a hub of instability and exporting terrorism to the whole region. The third trend that I was mentioning yesterday was this radicalization process in Turkey, and the fact that the leaders of Turkey are conducting a kind of a romance with the axis of evil, the Iranian axis of evil, which is the axis of Iran, Syria, Hamas, and Hezbollah. And all of that, when we talk about this phenomenon from an Israeli perspective, all of that happens at times that we are starting again direct discussions, direct political discussions, maybe renewal of the peace process between the Israelis and the Palestinians, which no doubt is a very fragile period of time, and if something will come up out of it, the outcome would probably be engage in some kind of new waves of terrorism altogether. To those four trends, I would like to add another trend or another factor which synergetically pose a real threat to the stability and the safety of the world today, and this is what I would refer to as a confused international leadership. And when I'm talking about international leadership, I mainly see in my mind the American leadership, which traditionally was leading the counter-terrorism, counter-radicalization international efforts. And when I'm talking about the confusion, I'm talking specifically about this illusion of this leadership, American and European and others, the illusion that free democratic elections are or is an apparatus of legitimizing those villains, the terrorists, or terrorist organizations altogether. When I was talking about the confusion that the international and American leadership has, I was referring to the fact that John Brennan, the mastermind of the White House counterterrorism strategy, was saying a few months ago that terrorism is not the enemy of the United States, and even worse than that, that Islamists and jihadists are not the enemy of the United States. Now, if Islamists and jihadists are not the enemy of the United States, I wonder who is the enemy of the United States. So I really share with you several concerns, and I believe that I'm not alone in this room, and among the scholarly community you would find many that are sharing those concerns altogether. And for that matter, I would like to share with you the results and the findings of a survey that we have conducted among some of the participants of this conference. Actually, it was almost 100 experts that have been answering our questions, coming from more than 20 countries altogether. Those experts are partly scholars, international decision makers, people which are coming from the private and the governmental sectors, and so on and so forth. Now, the findings that I would share with you in a moment, I would not refer to them as a scientific proof to anything, but it's more like a calculated guess of a very well-experienced experts that are sharing with us their guts feeling about those future trends, and as you would see in a minute, probably this negative future trends altogether. Actually, when we ask those people how well they believe they are informed in reference to the specific terrorist threats, 89% of them refers to themselves as more or much more informed than the general public whatsoever. Then we were focusing on the question of the nature of the threats, and in particular the question of the nuclear question, actually. And answering the question, what would happen if Iran would possess a nuclear weapon, 63% said that the level and the magnitude of the terrorist attacks in the world will increase as an outcome of Iran having possession of a nuclear weapon. When we asked the question, the previous one, when we asked the question of how effective are the sanctions which are being conducted against Iran in preventing their development of the nuclear weapon, 85% refers to that as non-effective altogether. And we asked the question, in how many years do you believe that a terrorist organization will obtain a nuclear weapon? 54% said that they believe that it will happen in the coming 10 years. Then we asked questions in reference to the probability of non-conventional attacks altogether. And in reference to the question of what is the likelihood that a large-scale, non-conventional CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear terrorist attack would occur somewhere in the world in the next 5 years, 66% said that there is a likely or highly likely event that might happen in the coming 5 years. Answering the question, what is the likelihood that a large-scale cyber terrorist attack will occur somewhere in the world in the next 5 years, 77% believe that there is some kind of likelihood or highly likely that it would happen. And then we asked some questions about counterterrorism. And the first question was, how would you describe the current international counterterrorism efforts? 52% says that they believe that those efforts are non-effective. And then, a little bit, to put a little bit flavor to the question, we asked, whose counterterrorism policy do you believe is more effective in confronting the challenges posed by the global jihadi terrorism? 64% believe that President Bush efforts are more effective. 36% believes that President Obama strategies are more effective. Then we were interested in some questions in reference to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Middle Eastern affairs. And we asked the question, in your opinion, what is the likelihood of peace that will be achieved between the Israelis and the Palestinians in the next 5 years? 88% believe that this is unlikely or highly unlikely that it will be achieved. And the last question was that some observers believes that regional stability in the Middle East will decrease if the U.S. military withdrawal from Iraq. Do you agree with such a statement? 55% believe that this is a fair answer, and 45% believe that it would not happen. So what I would like to share with you, show you what the experts are saying about that, and I would like now to share with you my personal assessment about the probability of the likelihood of a terrorist non-conventional attack that might happen in the near future. We are going to discuss that, by the way, also in other workshops in the coming 2 days, but I would like to share with you my thoughts about that. First of all, when we talk about the probability of non-conventional terrorism, what we need to do is to differ between 4 different types of non-conventional terrorism. This is the classical classification, if you wish, of this phenomenon: chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear terrorism. But I would like to suggest to add to this classification another classification, horizontal classification, which will refer to the nature and the magnitude of the non-conventional attack, and I would suggest to differ between limited attacks and unlimited attacks. When we create these metrics, what we can find that most of the chemical attacks are, in their nature and magnitude, limited attacks with few exceptions altogether, most of the biological attacks are unlimited attacks in their nature, again with few exceptions like the anthrax. Most of the radiological attacks are limited. This is the type of the dirty bombs. And most of the nuclear attacks would be regarded as unlimited attacks. So my argument is that this classification divides between two groups of non-conventional terrorism. Those that I would refer to them as modern terrorism, non-conventional terrorism, and those which are postmodern non-conventional terrorism. Now, the modern non-conventional terrorism would be the chemical and the radiological attack, and as said before, maybe some fragments of the biological attack, like the anthrax attacks. They are limited attacks in their nature. They are designed, like modern terrorism altogether, to create fear and anxiety, and they are aimed to transfer the fear, the personal fear and anxiety, into public pressure, political pressure on the decision makers to change their policies altogether. That's what modern terrorism is all about. Terrorism is there in order to terrorize, to create fear and anxiety, and to transfer this fear and anxiety into public pressure on the decision makers to change the reality. Modern terrorism is an indirect strategy, political strategy, to achieve the political goals that the terrorists are trying to achieve. Postmodern terrorism strategy, postmodern terrorism in this respect, which is most of the biological terrorist attacks and nuclear attacks, I would argue, they are aimed to change the reality by the very act itself. You have a problem with Israel? Let's exterminate Israel. You have a problem with the Americans? Let's launch a biological attack on the food supply of the United States, or a nuclear bomb in Manhattan, or whatever. This is changing the reality by the very act itself. This is not an indirect strategy. This is a direct strategy altogether. And I would like to argue that not every organization necessarily would have this transformation in their strategy and adopting in the short term postmodern terrorism strategy. I would argue that what is probably knocking on our door right now is those modern non-conventional attacks, chemicals and radiological. And I would suggest to focus, in the scholarly community, there is a question: what is more immediate danger to the safety of the world? Is this nuclear terrorism, as many American scholars believe? Is it biological attacks? I would like to argue that the immediate threat of international terrorism is chemical terrorism, because it's the next step of modern terrorism altogether. We know that today the terrorist has the know-how how to manufacture chemical terrorism. They can download the cookbooks from the internet, from specific websites. They have already, as you can see, those laboratories which are today being used in order to manufacture IEDs. But those primitive laboratories can definitely be used in order to prepare toxins and not IEDs if they want to. And they have the ingredients of the chemical attack off the shelf. They can buy them almost freely in many places around the world. And I would say that we see already the first events, or we saw the first events of chemical attacks happening in the last few years, when terrorists were either using or trying to use plots that were trying to use racine poisoning gas, cyanide, and chlorine, and other types of and other chemicals altogether. So to sum this up, if we take the survey findings, we see that 66% believes that it is likely or highly likely that a large scale of non-conventional CBRN terrorist attack would occur somewhere in the world in the next 5 years. I would dare to say that the probability of the occurrence of a non-conventional limited terrorist attack, and specifically chemical attacks, by the use of toxin material is even higher than the estimate of the experts in our survey. And this actually obliges us to start contending with this problem, the problem of modern non-conventional terrorism, although we didn't find solutions to other modern terrorism problems like suicide attacks, but still we need right now to build the policies and the practices to contend with the new wave of terrorism, which I would argue would be non-conventional, limited chemical attack whatsoever. Before ending my presentation, I would like to take this opportunity, and especially in the beginning of this new year, the new Jewish year, I would like to use this platform in order to express my personal wish and prayer, and I believe that I reflect the wish and prayers of all Israeli citizens in this respect, that the Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, which was kidnapped by the notorious terrorist organization Hamas, and is being held for years in an inhuman conditions, with a direct violation of every possible POW regulation of the international humanitarian law by his war criminal kidnappers, I would like to express our wish and prayers that in the coming new year he will return safe and sound to his family with no further delay. Thank you very much.